Hey, good morning, guys. I'm the Tech Prepper. It's a bit chilly outside, so we're recording from the Tech Prepper Man Cave, otherwise known as my RV. And today we're going to do another ham radio video. I have been really enjoying Summits on the Air, or SOTA. And for those of you who are new to amateur radio, really all it is a way to set up a remote radio station at a summit and allow other amateur operators to work your station. And there is an award system around it, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. In fact, this was the real reason I decided to get my general upgrade license, and was just to do more man-portable field work. So, I want to share with you a couple of lessons that I've learned. Talk a little bit about this last activation, and the reason I want to do it is I'm brand new to this portion of amateur radio and also relatively new to amateur radio. And I want to share with you the things that I'm internalizing as I'm working through this hobby. And I really want to have a big shout out to everybody on Instagram and YouTube that has helped me out through this journey. And they have given me tremendous pointers and a whole lot of support in being a successful summit operator. Before we get started, let's talk about the second summit that I just activated. It's Whiskey 7 Alpha Stroke Mike November 025. That's actually getting a whole lot easier to rattle off these days now. So it's Black Mesa. It is in the New River Cave Creek area in Arizona, so just north of Phoenix. And this peak is a couple thousand feet higher in elevation than the peak I activated last week. And I believe the actual elevation was 4,712 feet. I don't have the metric conversion for you guys out there, but that's where we are in the US. This peak was only activated once before in 2016, so it's nice to be the second person to activate that peak. And just a quick summary, I had done quite a bit of planning. I want to talk about that in a bit. We left at 6:30 in the morning local time and made it back home around 3 p.m.-ish local time. And I was fortunate that a neighbor who lives down the street really knows this area well. And we were actually able to take his Polaris out past the spot I went to last time. So it saved us about 3 miles of hiking. And we were left with just 2 miles of scaling the peak. And I will tell you, it was rough. No trail, a lot of bushwhacking, and everything in the forest wanted to prick us and just pinch us along the way. But we saw a lot of great scenery, and it was actually nice to have a companion just to share the day with and be able to have another set of eyes to help with the land navigation. So I have been a backpacker for most of my life. Starting when I was 7 years old, my uncle would take me all over the Sierras. So I do want to do some videos in the future just on what's required for general backpacking gear and the 10 essentials and land navigation techniques and things like that. So I'll try to focus more on just the high-level planning I did for the summit and the one before it. So first, I'm a man of checklists, and I just invested in a really inexpensive laminator on Amazon. And I'm now able to laminate my 3x5 index cards, which I use for my checklists. I'm also using those for reference materials. And then I was also able to laminate my maps. And I'm a big All Trails user, but I don't like All Trails for actually land navigating as I'm going. I like it to be able to create a map on my computer first, just so I have a general idea, printing out that map, laminating it, and have it with me as my primary mechanism of navigation. And then I like to have it record my route so that I can share after the fact with you, and also for myself as a reference in the future to have a real map. So I'll put that in the link below. In fact, I'm actually uploading all of the SOTA maps on All Trails as part of my post SOTA activation. So if you're in the area, take a look at those maps. It may not be the most optimal route, but it did get me to the summit and back safely. I also carry with me the USGS topos. Those are a bit larger and harder to navigate, but they work better if you have to take a step back and actually identify all of the other landmarks in your area. And I keep that in a Ziploc baggie. I'm not a big fan of real heavy duty GPS. I do have them on the phone if needed, but that's always more of a backup if I really can't figure out where the heck I'm going. Couple things I learned about the last trip was weight and spotting, and we'll talk about weight first. So, as a backpacker, I've always known that weight was going to be one of the biggest hindrances to your ability to make it further distance. And there's this sweet spot of how much gear do you need to support yourself versus how much gear can actually start to have negative returns in terms of impacting your endurance and ability to make your summit or whatever your destination is. So I decided to cut. I don't have the weight. I have a really terrible scale that's not accurate, but I decided to cut a few items. First was my Trekology table. It's really comfortable to use for a station once you get up there, but it's bulky and adds a bit of weight. And then I also dropped all of my other convenience items. So as much as I love my coffee and my cook set, I went ahead and ditched the fuel, my stove, and all of that gear. And it did make a considerable difference in perceived weight of my pack. And then I also got rid of a lot of duplicates. Typically I'll carry a fixed blade knife, but since I had my pocket knife and Leatherman, that was not critical to the success of that activation. And then a lot of like batteries and flashlights, where I like to have a second flashlight and extra batteries, I also cut that as well. And then medical supplies, I went ahead and looked at my kit, and anything that was not required for a minor boo-boo like a Band-Aid or moleskin, and anything that wasn't related to doing any type of self-treatment for a significant trauma, I dropped. So I did have my tourniquet, I did have my quick clot, and some compression gauze and a few pieces to really take care of a massive injury. But I cut a lot of the extra convenience items and duplicates from the first aid kit. So once we made it to the summit, let's talk a little bit about the station setup. My plan was always to operate 20 meters and 2 meters, although I did not do 2 meters, we just didn't have enough time. For 20 meters, I have the SOTABEAMS Carbon 6 carbon fiber mast, and that thing is going up tremendously well and is super lightweight, fits nicely in the pack, and I can't recommend that enough. And I learned some tricks again from the guys on Instagram. In the first activation, I was using a camping stake, and it pretty much kept the mast at a vertical angle, but I was concerned that I was about 2,000 feet higher on this peak, that the winds might get in the way. So I decided to get my MFJ guy ring, which has horrible production quality. You guys need to use sandpaper to get rid of those rough edges, MFJ. And I guyed out a few lines. I started out with 4, and then after posting that Instagram, everybody told me that 3 is all you need, and it actually worked out fantastic. A word on new gear, I also wanted to cut weight. I typically carry 550 paracord, and I use a number of overhand knots and taut line hitches. And I found this, they called it mini paracord, I believe. And the problem I saw with the mini paracord was that it was pretty much a bungee elastic cord, and it could not maintain a hitch. And I used the taut line hitch to lengthen or shorten the paracord or the line for my guy lines. So I ditched it. I figured, you know what, I spent an hour trying to make that line work, and it did not, and you're better off to have the additional weight knowing that your gear will support you. So another tip, if your gear doesn't work at home, it ain't gonna work in the field. So the mast was a success. Again, for the antenna, I used the wonderful Pactenna Mini End-Fed Half Wave. I do want to do a review on that. That went up really easily, no major issues there, and I was able to basically work the globe with that antenna system. The radio was my go-to Yaesu FT818ND, and this was the first time I actually had the portable zero rails in OD green, and it is beautiful. I wish I had made that investment some time back. And then for my handheld, I had my Yaesu FT60R. And the reason why, actually, let me take a step back. While I didn't use it for 2-meter activation, I did use it for APRS with the MobiLink D and APRS Droid, and I'll talk about spotting in a second. So that was pretty much it for the station setup. I don't have any great pictures, only because I wanted to play radio this time and wasn't planning on filming. Okay, if there's anything you want to take out this video, it's going to be this next 2 or 3 minutes, and this is on spotting. And a big, big, big thank you again to all the YouTubers out there, the creators and the subscribers, and the guys on Instagram. You guys gave me 3 spotting tips that absolutely were a game changer. The first one was using APRS, and while I don't have good luck with APRS on most of my hikes, I figured since I was at 4,700 feet that even with 5 watts I would have a line of sight, and it absolutely worked. So I was able to take my Yaesu 5-watt FT60R, connect it to my MobiLink D, and then connect it to APRS Droid, and I was able to spot myself with APRS to SOTA. So that's a tremendous service. What I did for myself is I went ahead and created these laminated 3x5 cards with the cheat sheet on the format so that I could spot myself. Again, my goal is never to use internet up there. And here's a shot. I was actually able to send that packet out and get a confirmation. And I will tell you, within 30 seconds of me making that post and spotting my frequency, mode of operation, my call sign, and I believe I put need more callers or need callers, I had a pileup. So it was my first pileup ever. So APRS to SOTA, absolutely tremendous. One thing to note is you do have to get yourself whitelisted. So if you go to the website, send an email to the maintainer, and they'll add your call sign to the whitelist. Otherwise, you will get blocked. So that's the first tip for self-spotting. The second one was using SOTAGoat, which is a application for your phone. My big concern with that is that it requires cell phone access, and sadly, even on that peak, I did not get any service, so I was not able to spot myself with SOTAGoat. But I will continue to have it with me and use it as a tool. In fact, it's a lot easier to use compared to the APRS setup. But for me, I never want to rely on the cell phone infrastructure. As a prepper, I got into radio because I do not want infrastructure to get in the way of my comms. And then the third, which I've never used before, was having another amateur radio operator support you and spot you if you're able to catch them on single sideband voice. And I had a great offer from Todd. His call sign is Kilo 6 Sierra Uniform Delta. And we were going back and forth. He's another Summits operator, and he offered to spot me. He was to the west of me in California. He was able to hear me, but for some reason I wasn't able to hear him. But that would have been another mechanism for us to be able to support each other. And we went back and forth the day before on Instagram through direct messaging, just trying to coordinate our schedules and when we thought we would be available at the summit. So another tip, I will probably try it in the future again. But guys, spotting yourself is absolutely the way to get a bunch of content. All right, so I'm going to have to read a few notes here, guys, so my apologies for that. So let's talk about that pileup after getting spotted by APRS to SOTA. And I had 13 contacts in less than 10 minutes. For me, it was actually kind of difficult. I don't quite have the ear yet to listen and take down the stations, but I'm getting better at it. So I do apologize for any of my contacts for having them repeat the call sign 1, 2, or 3 times in the worst case scenario. But it was amazing to get basically a whole queue of people to make contact with you. I also made my first DX contact in France, and K6 SUD, he also made the same contact in France. So big thanks to you, Christian. I hope you do QSL cards. His call was Foxtrot 4 Whiskey Bravo November. That was a 5,500 mile QSO, and then I do have it in kilometers. It's 8,911 kilometers from point to point. So I activated that peak, got my full 6 points, and absolutely had a blast, guys. Kilo India 6 station, please go ahead with your call sign.
Kilo Italy 6, Echo America Bravo. Good morning. You're 5-7 in California. The name is John. I have the mountain. Stay safe today. Kilo Italy 6, Echo America Bravo.
QSL, John, you're coming in 5x9 into Arizona. Summit's on the air. The peak is Whiskey 7 Alpha Stroke Mike November 025. We're at about 4,500 feet.
Roger, QSL. I have the SOTA spot there. Stay safe today. Kilo Italy 6.
In general, the day was a success. I want to go over just a few tips. And again, this isn't a comprehensive list by any means, but just a few things that may be helpful for the new guys. So one thing I did was I like to test my ability to get into my local repeater as I'm going through my various waypoints. So I did test that a handful of times and was able to get into the local repeater every single time. So if there was ever a need, I know that I could actually call for help through the repeater. Number 2, test your gear. Like I said, that guy ring setup with that horrible mini paracord, it was a good thing I tested it before I got out in the field. Otherwise, I just would have been racking my brain to set up my station. Know your surroundings, and this is important for me. The problem I really have with map-based GPS on digital devices, you tend to look too much at your phone in my experience, and by having that paper map with you, it really makes you think about where you are and knowing where the different landmarks are. And I know that land navigation can be difficult, especially out here in the desert where everything looks the same, but it really will help you become a better mountaineer and a better navigator and give you confidence in your skills. Anything with battery can fail in my mind. Phones do have glitches like computers. In fact, they are computers. So I just tend to avoid them where possible. But I will use them as a convenience item if they work and they're there. But I don't rely them on as my primary means of navigation. Traveling with the SOTABEAMS mast is another big one for me. I was wanting to go larger, go with a 10-meter mast. Pactana has one, SOTABEAMS has one, and it's their fiberglass mast, and they're almost double the weight and quite a bit larger. So for me, I'm already seeing a lot of value in that 18-foot or 6-meter carbon fiber mast, and I was able to basically work the world, and I'll count France as being a good indicator that I'm able to work the world on 5 watts. So I was up high enough, the mast was up high enough for me, so it worked out pretty well. Let's talk about first aid. I've been going back and forth with another ham. One of the other things I want to add to my tool set is some wilderness first aid training. I just want to make sure that I'm able to have the right equipment and the right skills to take care of myself or my travel companions when we go out there. Again, these aren't well-maintained trails like you find in a lot of populated areas. These are 100% off the beaten path, and you may need to support yourself. So wilderness first aid training is absolutely top of my list and something I'm going to do at the beginning of 2021. And then take your time. While we were only doing 2 miles from the point where we parked the Polaris 4x4 to the summit, we were averaging 70 minutes per mile. And there was a lot of loose rock. I actually took 1 or 2 tumbles, caught myself both times. But it's the kind of place where you don't want to rush. So everything you do, whether it's packing your gear, whether it's planning for the trip, when you're on the trail and making your path up to the summit, setting up your camp, tearing it down, whatever it is, just everything you do out there, please take your time. That's one of the biggest pieces of advice my uncle gave me, and I'm forever into his debt for teaching me that one lesson. All right, guys, I'm the Tech Prepper. Be strong, be safe, and be prepared. One more thing. Let me know if you guys want to see a gear dump. I kind of want to show you probably the radio gear dump first for HF, maybe the setup for 2 meters, and then if you guys really want it, I'll do one for my entire kit. That's more like my mountaineering setup. All right, guys, enough talking. I'm out for the day. Happy Sunday.